This is Red Podcast, episode 220, talking about the shadier side of gun shows and what you can learn from them. That's coming up.
This is the Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Rise above the noise. Expand your audience. Deliver impact. Here's your host, David Hooper.
This is part 2 of a 2-part series. If you haven't heard part 1, that is episode number 219. Check out 219 on your podcast player, or if you want to get on the web and go direct that way, redpodcast.com/219 has it for you. On that episode, I talked about my experience in the hillbilly business of gun shows, guns and ammo, and also knives, and also KKK memorabilia, and also neo-Nazi stuff, and also good old boy propaganda. Basically, if it shot somebody, stabbed them, or disenfranchised them through false information, it was available at the gun show. And I got involved in that business quite on accident. I was just a kid, grew up in a redneck family. My grandfather, ammunition guy. He was selling bullets, started tagging along, started making money being a gun and ammunition bellhop. And on that episode 219, I talked about lessons that are important to you as an influencer, a blogger, a podcaster, marketer, somebody with a message to spread. On this episode, still talking about the gun show, but I'm talking about the seedier side of the gun show. Now, as you know, if you've listened to Red Podcasts, sometimes I do that, talk about what I call shadow businesses, talking to escorts, the IRS phone scam people, boiler rooms, pump and dump scams. If I haven't talked about it here, I've written about it at my blog at 23hours.com. Gun show is no exception to this business. On this episode, I'm talking about the shadow element of the gun show and what you can learn as an influencer. This is the Red Podcast. It's for bloggers, podcasters, speakers, marketers, nonfiction authors, and entrepreneurs with messages to spread. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place. Talk about how to spread your message, make people care about it, and make money with it. So if you're doing things like book publishing, podcasting, speaking, I'm going to help you. Now, if you're not familiar with the gun show, let me explain it to you. Basically, it's a bunch of guys, usually old white guys. They come to your town from various places, and they've got vans full of guns, knives, ammunition, and some of the other things that I talked about. Although some of those things, they're under the table, kind of like going to a flea market. You ask for a fake Rolex. The guy reaches under the table, pulls one out. They get that kind of thing at the gun show. More or less, it's word of mouth that gets people to these events. If you're in the know, you're in the know. However, sometimes you do see traditional advertising. Here's an example of a radio commercial from 1992.
Get ready, Louisville. Bill Goodman's Gun and Knife Shows returning to the Louisville Fairgrounds. Hundreds of shotguns, rifles, handguns, knives of all kinds, military items, everything for hunters and shooters. Got any guns to sell? Bring them to the show. Thousands of buyers will be there. Gun and Knife Show. Call a buddy. Bring a friend.
I want to preface this by saying I think there are a lot of good people at the gun show, but there is that seedy element. Every industry that I've worked in has some shady people. So this is no exception. So I'm not trying to paint gun shows and people that are into this business with a broad stroke. This is just my experience from going to dozens of them. You can hear more about that on the first part of this series, redpodcast.com/219, to know about my background in this. So I'm going to talk about the shadier elements that I feel that may or may not apply to your business as an influencer. And one of those things is that under-the-table deals equals money. People love to think that they're getting something that they shouldn't. Sometimes that's a great deal, and sometimes that's something that's not available to the general public. Now, my experience with these gun shows is a lot of times they would have kits that would change a semi-automatic weapon to an automatic weapon. You probably heard of a switchblade, angel blade, which comes out the top of the knife. They'd have switchblade and angel blade kits that you could put together. They weren't put together when they gave them to you, but they were more or less put together because the kit was putting together two pieces like A to B, like IKEA furniture. It was super easy to put together. So people would think that they were getting a deal, these under-the-table deals. And at the gun shows that I attended, not only were there firearm conversion kits, there were also white power and Nazi items. There were controversial books with subjects like how to kill somebody, how to get away with creating a new identity. Those are extreme examples, but the concept is relevant for all businesses, and it's relevant for the work that you're doing. For a great example of this in the non-gun market, look at any muscle or bodybuilding magazine. Muscle and Fitness is a great one. Almost all of them are full of ads for barely legal and banned substances that make it look like you're ordering steroids. You are not ordering steroids out of the back of a magazine. You get those on the internet. You see this in auto magazines, parts for your car to make them run faster, more powerfully, get better gas mileage. Men's magazines, they make you think that you're getting Cuban cigars. You're not in the United States anyway, not through the mail. But the big lesson is this: what information or product can you sell that isn't available anywhere else? How can you jack up the perceived intensity and excitement to make people feel that they're getting something special? If you got examples of how you're doing this, let me know. I would love to mention you on the podcast. At David Hooper on Twitter is the best way to get me. Lesson number 2 from the illicit side of the gun show is that fear sells. It sells better than hope. It sells better than the opportunity to do better. The sad reality of humans is that we respond to fear and also cure over twice as much as we do prevention. In other words, as far as marketing is concerned, we'd rather get sick and take a pill than do something to keep us from getting sick in the first place. You can see this in politics. You're seeing it right now in the United States. Fear sells. Check out this commercial.
The idea that a gun is a defensive weapon, that is a myth. A gun is not a defensive weapon.
I'm going to introduce in the Senate a bill to ban assault weapons. The sale, the transfer, the importation, and the possession, not retroactively, but prospectively.
Come and take it if you want it. Come and take it if you think you can. Come and take it, but I warn you, you'll have to pry it from a cold dead.
The Chippewa County Shooting Association is having their annual gun show, April 6th and 7th at 220 Osborne, the Old Sioux Co-op IGA in Sioux, Michigan. Gun dealers from all over the U.S. will be at the show. If you're looking to buy, sell, or trade guns, ammunition, hunting supplies, or any outdoor items, then this gun show is for you. Doors open at 9 a.m. both days. The 34th Annual Chippewa County Shooting Association's Gun Show in the Old Sioux Co-op IGA, April 6th and 7th from 9 till 6 in Sioux, Michigan.
So because of what I'm talking about, this human nature, gun shows are full of fear-based marketing, and they talk about all the things that we're scared of, not only in their advertisements to get you there, but also when you're there, terrorists, gun-snatching politicians, lack of personal safety for non-armed individuals, full of it. Fox News sells all of these examples. Really, all news sells these kind of examples, but especially the really right-wing kind of conspiracy theory type networks. What do you see if you get on there? Buy gold. The dollar's going to collapse. Make sure you get freeze-dried food in case of a terrorist attack so your family can survive. Make sure you have a safe room. You have your galvanized steel bunker in the back of your yard? Well, you need one. That kind of stuff. And we hear this all the time because it works. Church, the concept of Satan and hell, packs the pews every week. Talked about selling gold and the fear of the dollar collapsing. How do you think Bitcoin took off? Now, is that the way you run your business? Maybe, maybe not. This is a little bit disturbing to me. I'm here to show you what works and talk about the psychology, and in this case, the biology behind it. I'm not necessarily saying that you should do it, but I want to present all the options for you just in case it does work in your market. Fear sells. Sometimes it can work for you by allowing you to come down to a customer's level, allow you to get on their radar, and then you bring them up with you. If you're sitting at the top of your mountain, if you're better than they are, if you know better than they do, you're not going to be able to reach them. So sometimes this can work. If you need justification for it, that may be it. Fear sells. Big lesson number 3 from the shadier side of the gun show, us versus them. Kind of heard that in that second ad that I played. Basically what it says, at least at the gun show, is you are the real American. Everybody else, they're out to get us. Real Americans are in this building. Almost every company uses this at one time or another. There's Macintosh, and then there's everybody else. Talked about church. Almost every church does this. There's us inside the church, and then there's the world outside of the church. Everybody else. We're going to heaven. They're going to hell. You're either with us or you're against us. And if you're not with us, you're cheap, stupid, you're a communist, you're not a real man, and you're going to hell. This gets back into biology. This gets back into psychology. People want something that's black and white. We like to be in or we like to be out. You may not get this. You're an entrepreneur. You're trying to spread a message. You're removed from this. Most people, they need that black and white. And the irony of that statement that I just made is I'm doing exactly what I'm talking about. There's us, there's you, there's me, the influencers, the book publishers, the bloggers, the podcasters, the people with messages to spread. Then there's everybody else. The people who listen to us, the people who read our books, the people who consume our messages. This works. So final thought. I'm going to say the same thing that I said at the end of the last episode. If you have the opportunity to go to one of these events, even if you're like me, you've got absolutely no interest in guns, I highly recommend it. The firearms industry in the United States, $31.8 billion. So they're doing something right, at least as far as reaching people. Can you learn from them? Absolutely. Next episode, talking about hustle, the truth about hustle. It's an overused word. It's a cliche in the entrepreneurial space. I'm going to give you the truth behind it. The truth about hustle, that's next on Red Podcast. To make sure you never miss an episode, visit me online, redpodcast.com. While you're there, one click is all it takes for you to subscribe. Whether you have an iPhone, an Android, or you just listen via the web, one click is all it takes. You'll never miss an episode. Subscribe at redpodcast.com. If you've got questions, you've got comments, reach out to me. I'm online. Twitter's the best way to get me. At David Hooper is my username. If you've got questions, you've got comments, go there. I'll respond to you. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next episode of Red Podcast.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Never miss an episode. Subscribe now with your iPhone, Android, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.
Hey, I don't think I said this on the last episode. Man, you got to be careful when you go to these places. Wear your bulletproof vest or something. More than one time. No, I'm not, take that.